Hi, I'm Steve Parish from Steve Parish Nature Connect. You may have seen my books over the years, and I've done actually many children's and adult books, reference books, guide books on our wonderful friends the kangaroos. I refer to them as macropods, which includes all of the kangaroos and all of the wallabies, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. I was really thrilled to be asked to judge this competition and to prepare a little commentary on how I actually assess images when I do my publishing work. And I've been behind the computer for many years. 56 years I've been a nature photographer, started off with fish, then moved to possums. Fell in love with macropods fairly early in the piece. In fact, the image, or the exchange that I had with my first in love, if you like, situation, we've all got moments in our lives where we were connected to something very special, was actually in the Gammon Ranges. I was there doing a book with Alan Fox called Australia's Wilderness Experience in 1984, a very long time ago. And I was actually photographing feral goats of all things. And right in front of me there, this beautiful young female, doughy-eyed wallaroo jumped off the top of the cliff and bounced all the way down to the bottom, almost to the waterhole, stopped, poised, stood up and looked me right in the eye. And I was looking through a 600mm lens at the time. And that was the image that, I must say that macropods went into my soul. And I then devoted a lot of my career into trying to photograph and understand the full gambit. At that time, there were about 50, they were actually classified as around 50 species. Over the years the years that have passed, that number of species has actually expanded, and that's due primarily to DNA and, of course, a lot of the taxonomic work that's been done on macropods across Australia. So where we might have had thought there was one species, they've been split into two. And so that particular tab shows you 24 of the 70 side-on portraits, and as you can see, they're all quite different from each other when you look at them very up close. You can see here the lovely Lumholtz tree kangaroo. This fellow here is a western grey kangaroo male, and here's an eastern grey kangaroo female. And we've got the smallest of all the macropods, the Hypsiprimedon, up there in the tropical rainforests. So when we look at macropods, and I can tell you now that about 95%, if not more, of Australians think there's a red and a grey and that's the end of it. And of course you can see here that's not entirely true. Some of them have very limited distribution, like the black wallaroo from Arnhem Land in Kakadu, just west of Kakadu. Or should I say east, along the escarpment country, has a very limited distribution range. That's a female. The females are pale. The males are very dark. They're very elusive and very difficult to actually approach to photograph. We've also got lots of endangered macropods. You can see here, this is the bridal nail-tail wallaby. This is a male. That's in a sanctuary managed by, in southwestern New South Wales, managed by the Australian Wildlife Conservancy, where they've got a captive breeding program going on. And of course, a lot of the problems that some of these macropods have in the wild, particularly the smaller ones, are our feral cats, our foxes, and particularly habitat clearing, grazing cattle, and so on. So that's the macropods. Now, my criteria for looking at images, and I do this in assessing my own images almost on a daily basis if I'm doing a calendar or a book, is a very strong sense of place. So out of the 650, 700 images that were submitted into this competition, I had to have some sort of a criteria. Next year we're going to split the categories, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a moment. There should have been several different categories that people could have entered, which would have enabled more people to win. And I have to say, you're all winners. I don't see it as winners and losers, but I have to assess it and I have to be able to put some sort of criteria. So what I was looking for is a very strong sense of place. In other words, the animal in its natural environment, preferably in its natural environment. And as we know, a lot of the eastern greys in particular The red-necked wallabies as well often come into urban areas, so you do see them on mowed lawns in a fairly domestic sort of situation. They can be entirely wild, however they are poking their heads, if you like, into country that has been altered by we humans. I'm also looking for a high level of mood, we're going to talk about that in a moment, and a high level of image design. Now, what do I mean by those three? So from a viewpoint point of view, this is not an entry to the competition, this is one of my images. I've actually positioned those kangaroos in silhouette form, low in the frame and across to the left, because I wanted to get a sense of sky, the drama of the place that they're in. Now, moving a little bit further around and up the hill, I was able to get the sun directly behind the animal, and you can see here what we call rim light. And several of the images that you guys have entered have terrific rim light. So we're going to talk about that as well as we go through. So weather and light and viewpoint are three primary elements. And of course, then we get into the design principles and the design elements. Now you might say, oh, that's a bit too much. I just like using my iPhone and having fun. That's terrific as well. However, if you want to elevate your photography into an art form and learn more about the artistic aspects of photography, as many of you do, it's really worthwhile studying some of these principles. Things like balance, pattern, emphasis, where you're coming in very closely, and you'll see a lot of your entries really do put emphasis because you're cropping out a lot of the elements that are unnecessary. Things like movement, variety, colour variety, lines that lead the eye, shape, space, form, all of these sorts of elements. I cover these in quite detail in my own masterclass, Photography: A Pathway to Purpose, which many of the winning and submitting entries will be receiving. And so they're the sorts of elements that I will be discussing as we go through these images. So I'm saving the actual winners to the end to announce. I'm not going to announce them until I get to the end of this presentation. Got to have a little tension. This is a super shot. May have been a little bit better improved if we had the feet, but nonetheless, that's a beautiful, beautiful image in terms of the emphasis being placed on the animal in the foreground, and the fact that there's two, probably either a young male or a young female in his mob, beautifully balanced and looking back at the big boy doing his stretch. He might have actually been preparing to have a bit of a tussle with a rival. Only the photographer would know that. But look at that lovely background, that beautiful soft background, the lovely balance, giving that animal a tremendous sense of place. I really like this lovely mauve tint going through here. So that's alpha male of the mob, Brendan Attard. Now, Barry Feldman's captured this great picture. In fact, in his monologue that he supplied with it, he said that he was absolutely thrilled to find this moment, but unfortunately, as often happens, treading on a twig, or one of the mob looked up and saw him and decided to set off the alarm and make a dash. So they're actually early morning light, early morning mist. It's a beautiful, beautiful image, Morning Light by Barry Feldman. Now, the Mareeba rock wallaby, which I know very well, Maddie Walsh has actually entered several images into this competition. That's a lovely, lovely image, and the eye contact, I've actually lent more towards non-eye contact, so the animals are actually behaving completely naturally. But that's a lovely image because the whole central focus is on the animal, the female with her little Joey. So that's a Mareeba rock wallaby. That's a North Queensland, one of 6 of the North Queensland rock wallabies, all of which look very, very similar to each other. There's the Cape York rock wallaby, there's the unadorned rock wallaby, there's several of them. Fairly limited distributions, live in rocky country. Wonderful fun to photograph. Now, Peter's done a really beaut job with this, and he's presented it in black and white. I like it also because it's a sort of a semi-rural image. You can see here, a fence post, lovely little detail. And that image captured in black and white is very arresting, I'm sure you'll agree. So that's First Light by Peter. Wayne Williams has done a lovely job with this, Into the Sunset. It would have been a little better for a horizontal, maybe. And of course, when you're taking photographs and things happen suddenly, it's very difficult to ascertain. So perhaps a little less foreground, a horizontal image with the animal moving across, and that's a big buck grey kangaroo. Lovely image, nonetheless. Wayne Williams again, that's a lovely shot taking, and that's what we call framing, where we are actually shooting through between trees. There's many ways you can frame an image. You can frame Uluru by standing behind a tree and put the branches over the top and in the foreground and look through to Uluru. They can be very arresting also, very capturing for the eye, really guides the eye in there. And of course these eucalypts in the background, lovely soft focus, little touch of green, absolutely gorgeous. I can see in the collection, you guys are all, big fans of boxing kangaroos, and who isn't? This looks like a serious battle. Of course, a lot of the situations we see kangaroos having a bit of a punch-up are actually play boxing. So you might have young males having a bit of a tussle, but this looks like almost fully mature male. They look like they're eastern grey kangaroos. They could be, they're eastern. Western are usually a bit stockier. We'll see a western a little bit further on. So Sunrise Sparring by Aaron Brown. I love this image in particular. It's titled Peace, which is a perfect caption. And I particularly love this because, as you can see, the beautiful balance. This one is ignoring the situation, ignoring the photographer. So it's very natural, and that looks like the edge of a forest on cleared land, but nonetheless a beautifully balanced image. And they look to me like western grey kangaroos, very dark animals. And these two up here, this is a young at foot, it's a yearling, but that actually helps make the image. I'm sure you'll agree. So your eye sort of wanders up there, and it's really encapsulated in that lovely muted scene. That's a stunner. That'd make a great cover for a book, don't you think? You could extend this dark area out here and call it the Roo. But I love the way Belle has composed that picture. Beautiful golden light, point of focus on the eye, just enough focus on the nose. So these are the sorts of things that one is looking at when one is selecting images for a particular project. What I do when I shoot, I do lots of variations. I do loose, tight, horizontal, vertical, wide angle, long lens. Indeed, if one is able to, depending on the situation. And then what I do is I go into the library to trying to pick an image from that sequence that suits the particular project that I'm working on. So you keep them all. I use Lightroom and I cluster all the images together, keyword them, and I'm able to just type in grey kangaroo or western grey kangaroo, etc. So these are eastern kangaroos, eastern grey kangaroos, the most common of all of the macropods in Australia, right down the east coast. As you move across Australia into more arid areas and across to Western Australia, you have what's called the western grey kangaroo, which is a different species. Looks very similar. It's usually a brown, much darker animal. So this is Trevor Crawford's, and I think you'll agree with me. That's a lovely setting, and very commonly how you find the eastern grey kangaroo in the rural areas close to forests. Of course, they go into those forests at night. The Scratch by Jacob Emerson, that's a lovely image. I think you'll agree, beautifully balanced, got the feet in, the beautiful golden light. And here's what I talked about earlier, the lovely rim light. In this case, it's beautiful golden rim light. And of course, the bright green grass here really helps punch out those animals, doesn't it? This is the pick of the crop for boxing kangaroos. This is a pair of male greys absolutely going hammer and tong. And of course, when this sort of happens, particularly if they're in the middle of a mob, you'll get animals running off and you'll get probably blurry animals in the foreground. And the only thing you can really do if you've got an SLR and you've got a motor drive, or indeed if you've got a phone and you're close enough, is let it rattle away. So get lots of different images that will then enable you to choose one that's perhaps not got such a cluttered foreground. It's a very simple image, but it's beautifully lit. I think you'll agree. Lovely twilight coming through the sides. This is a pair of young boys having a bit of a punch up, or preparing to have one, and nothing terribly serious, I think, would have elevated. There's a couple of young males. This is early in their career, and of course they have to learn how to defend the mob, and that's of course why they get into what I've been referring to as punch-ups. Glennie's Lily, lovely image, beautiful and sharp. Jumping around, this is a bit of play work going on. There's probably a couple of young males having a bit of a learning experience. Again, beautiful soft light. Sometimes, misty, overcast, a little bit overcast, a little bit of golden light coming through. You can see there lots of lovely detail in the fur. You can see that. So some of these sorts of situations, particularly on the macropods that have got fur, it's misty, overcast weather, soft light, very, very soft light, is often the best for photographing these animals. And of course we've all seen this, and we all hope that the kangaroo won't make a mad dash just as we pass. And of course, unfortunately, we do find a lot of particularly females that have been hit by cars or trucks, and that's of course where the joey is often picked up and brought into care. We're going to talk about wildlife care in a moment. At several entries like this. This is perhaps the best, and I think the background really, I always look at the background, I always run my eye around the background, and what helps this animal really stand out is the simplicity of the background, not just its softness, but also this diagonal line through it. That really helps, the overall appeal of the image, and also lovely blue, so lovely colour juxtaposition of the background. Of course, when you use telephoto lenses in particular, this is why phones are not so effective. Phones tend to give, unless you've got it on portrait mode and you happen to be very, very close with the more recent phones, the background can be quite distracting, lots and lots of detail, but I think you'll agree with me, that really punches out. In fact, you could do a lovely square image, you could do a lot of different compositions on that image, and of course Mr. or Mrs. Willie Wagtail is up there, probably looking for some ticks. And so it's a bit of mutualism going on there. The kangaroo gets a benefit. He looks like a boy to me, and he's definitely a boy. I've got several pictures, but nothing as good as this. Bex Harrigan really, really nailed that, I think you'll agree. Beautiful, beautiful shot. You can just see the fence line there, and he's in midair, pin sharp, over the top. Absolutely gorgeous picture. And The Young Tree Kangaroo by Maddie Walcher from North Queensland. That's Lumholtz tree kangaroo, and here she is, Maddie again, with a big boy. And of course, when you're shooting tree kangaroos, you always have problems with foregrounds, and the only thing you can do is wait, maybe move around a little bit. I usually set up a tripod when I'm doing tree kangaroos because I know that I'm going to have to be quite patient in my capture process, waiting for the animal to get into maybe some scratching, if it's got a young one, a little bit of interaction between the animals. And of course one needs to be very, very patient. And of course macropods, particularly those that are lolling around, it's a good idea, even if you're in a fauna park and you've got a situation where you can do that, to actually spend time with the animal, watching its ears twitch, looking at different angles, moving a camera around, rather than just snapping away and then walking away. Now Sume has entered the competition here, and I'm going to start making some announcements. I've chosen Sume, although we didn't advertise a runner-up. I had to struggle, trying to pick a winner because that's all I was supposed to do, but I've kind of broken the rules and I've actually picked a few winners. And Sume, I've put Sume down as a runner-up to the winning shot. This next series of images, this is Morning Mob, Day's End, and A Dusky Rain, and then finally Playtime. They're all images by Sume. I think you'll agree that as a portfolio of images, those shots are absolutely gorgeous, particularly that one, Love Dusky Rain, Day's End, looked like parrots, cockatoos flying away into the distance. This is the Butte shot. A particularly interesting shot for a macropod mob. You can see them there. You can see over here on the left-hand side, she's looking that way, he's looking that way. So all those ears. So when you're sneaking up on a wild mob, you've got to be very, very quiet. And it's best, of course, to use very long lenses and just be very patient. So Sume's done a fantastic job with those images. Now, we didn't have a category for carers in the 2021 World Kangaroo Day photographic competition, but I've been promised that we will next year. I don't think that macropods in care situations really need to, or should indeed, compete with those in the wild. Nonetheless, I've broken the rules and I've picked my favourite from the many, 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 many images that were submitted by those wonderful wildlife carers. Many of them dedicated their lives to looking after macropods, particularly those picked up Mum's Pouch on the roadside. So Sleepyhead by Ray Harvey is my favourite, and of course you can get some absolutely gorgeous and stunning images in a care situation. So Ray will be receiving my Around Australia guide, as will brother-in-arms Philippa Beckering. Absolutely gorgeous shot there. You can see the wonderful eye contact. A couple of young, recently out of the pouch, learning to be macropods. I don't know the history of those two animals, but an absolutely gorgeous shot, beautiful background, lovely eye contact. Again, Philippa will receive my Around Australia guide. As will the Packers Award. Congratulations to Tracy D. I managed to capture the kangaroo hopping through as the sunset. Quite a remarkable image, I'm sure you'll agree. And so worldkangarooday.org, you've got to visit that on this very special day, and it'll be up on their social pages on an ongoing basis. So Tracy will also get an Around Australia guide. And the overall winner is A Misty Morning by Brendan Attard. That is a magnificent picture, and Brendan will be receiving my Around Australia guide and my masterclass, and he will be able to go through the masterclass, and if Brendan wishes, I can help him grow his photography. He may be teaching me a few things, I think you'll agree. Beautifully post-produced, beautifully submitted, lovely soft image, that magic moment late in the afternoon. We may all have seen it, but he's really captured that beautifully. So congratulations, Brendan. You are the overall winner of the 2021 World Kangaroo Day photographic competition. So that's wonderful. So the masterclass that Brendan will be receiving, along with the Around Australia guide, actually covers everything from creative life purpose, projects with purpose, the art of seeing art, which looks at all the design, the whole philosophy behind camera and captures, the digital darkroom where we can enhance our pictures, we can create art, a wonderful story in that one, and also some ideas and suggestions for broadening your connection with the wider community, where you'll be expressing your artistic work. And of course this masterclass has been running for 4 years now. It's a combination of my 56 years, over 40 years living as a professional nature photographer. And so by all means join me on that. If you're not a winner, you can always join me on the masterclass. And also the Ultimate Travel Guide, which is brand new, that came out here in mid-2021. I've been waiting for the borders to open to give it a good thump. 9 guides, 16 videos on and offline, all states and territories, and that will take you on a journey right around Australia, starting with Capturing the Essence, which is a major new ebook. My photo tips from right across my career, including fish, people, Indigenous culture, landscape, forests, insects, birds, you name it. It's all in there, including macropods. And then we go into making travel plans where we look at some suggestions and ideas for making the trip absolutely valuable to you, whether you've got 2 weeks, 1 week, 4 years, whatever the length of time, whichever area. Now, you can work with these e-guides, these state-based e-guides on their own, or you can actually go all the way from New South Wales and circumnavigate the whole of Australia. Or you can start in Perth and go anti-clockwise. It's designed to actually start in New South Wales, Sydney, and go in an anti-clockwise direction, which is the bulk of what people do when they travel. They go north along the east coast and then across the top, down into the centre, and then of course round the Kimberley into the Western Australia. So there'll be lots of people receiving an email from the organisers for linking all the runners up from all of the categories. And do visit my website and do visit my social pages where we can chat about nature, macropods, etc. at steveparishnatureconnect.com.au. You can see the travel guide. This is the landing page. All the masterclasses over here. Go to the blog and see lots of tips on bird photography, all sorts of different aspects, and of course my digital art portfolios. So, wonderful to have shared some thoughts and ideas behind your photographs. This is something I've really enjoyed doing, and I'm looking forward to next year. So respect the kangaroo, find out about the kangaroo, do some research. There's more to life than eastern grey kangaroos into this wonderful world of macropods and red kangaroos. So do some exploration and find out about the smaller, more elusive, and of course a lot of our fauna parks have some of these more elusive, rarer animals right around Australia. So congratulations to everybody for entering, and I hope you all enjoyed my monologue, some comments about the images behind the scenes. So I look forward to seeing your entries, so start shooting now, and we'll be putting up the categories a lot earlier next year. We'll have several categories, particularly for the carers, and a big shout out to the carers from all of us for their dedication and care looking after these wonderful creatures, the macropods. See you in another year, or see you online.